decided to make a video about the top 10 best endings of the 2010s. I thought it'd be a pretty cool thing to talk about. So today's video, I am talking about my favorite endings of any movie in the last 8 years. That means it could be anything from the final scene to the final moment, but anything that happens in the last 2 or 3 scenes, at least, I am going to include on this list. You guys might be wondering, where is this film, or where's the ending to this movie? Well, if you don't see something that you think should be on this list, please let me know in the comments down below. Comment your favorite endings of any movie, especially any movie in the last 8 years. I would love to hear your thoughts because that's the most important part. But right now we are going to get into my list. What do I think that the best endings to my favorite movies of the 2010s are? And just a quick announcement before we get into this. I'm starting a fantasy football league with movie people and movie lovers and YouTubers. So if you would like to be a part of that, please comment down below and say, I want to be in your fantasy football league. We'll find a way to get a hold of each other. I'm looking for like 10 to 12 people. So if you guys are into something like that, please, I would love for you to be a part of it. But right now we are talking about the best endings, the final shots of a film of the 2010s, which means from 2010 until now. Let's get right into it. Of course, I can't just give you guys my 10 through 1. I have to throw in some honorable mentions, and my 5 honorable mentions are American Sniper, The Dark Knight Rises, Mad Max Fury Road, Looper, and War for the Planet of the Apes. It hurt me to leave these movies off of there because the endings to these films are just so magnificently well done, whether it's the final shot of Joseph Gordon-Levitt being lifted in The Dark Knight Rises, or it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt shooting himself in Looper. Wow, he's in a lot of these movies. Or it's that music mixed with Charlize Theron getting lifted in Mad Max Fury Road, Caesar dying in War for the Planet of the Apes. Spoilers! Or just the soft, sad, somber ending of American Sniper, guys. I will never forget the theater and the way that they were responding when I was watching that movie. But those are some great endings, but they are not in my top 10, and I'll tell you why here in a second. Let's get into number 10. And at number 10, a movie that I just recently rewatched for the second time. I can't believe it was only the second time, and that is Warrior with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. Guys, I think this movie is magnificent, but we are not talking about the movie. We're talking about the way that it ends. And you know where the movie is going. You know it's going to turn out Tom Hardy versus his brother. These two characters going up against each other, but I didn't know how the fight was going to end. And the way that it ended and seeing him come to victory, even though in a way you're rooting for Tom Hardy, it's so good to see that just sweet victory and carrying his brother out at the end. That final shot, walking towards the camera, I think that is one of the most memorable shots in any fight movie in history. I love the way that this movie ends, and I love those last few seconds. It's just so heartwarming, emotional. The feeling that I got the first time that I saw it, and even rewatching it a few weeks ago, guys, I think this movie is magnificent. Now, I had this movie in my honorable mentions, but the more that I thought about it, the more I'm like, wow, that ending is just so emotional, and the way that it goes into the credits just really kind of struck me on a different chord, and that is Arrival. I think Arrival is a magnificent film, but the way that this movie ends with those violins playing in the background, seeing Amy Adams have the daughter, and go about everything that you saw in the beginning of the movie, making her flashbacks come to light, even though she knew exactly what was going to happen, seeing her end up with Jeremy Renner, as you expected, but I love the way that they went about that. It's just sad, it's emotional, it's very heartfelt. You know that it's going to turn out in the worst way possible, but you're glad that she did it, guys. Denis Villeneuve gave us a magnificent film with a really good ending. Alright, number 8, you guys knew it was probably coming, and this isn't the last shot or the last few shots. This is the final scene of La La Land, that big 4 or 5 minute montage where they're going about their life and they're doing the musical stuff. Now, I know everybody doesn't love this movie, but I just think this movie is so beautifully put together. I love the shots and the visuals and all of the sets in the final scene. I think the final scene holds some of the best set design that I have seen in the last decade. But it's all about the emotional gut punch that it brings us with these two characters, because you wanted them to end up together, but you finally figure out that they are not going to end up together. And while it is sad, I think it was so magnificently put together, guys. I can't wait to see First Man because Damien Chazelle is a masterclass director. come to another Denis Villeneuve movie, and that is Prisoners. I think I just like the way he ends his films, but Prisoners ends on such a great note. So you get to this final scene, Hugh Jackman is missing, you don't know where he is, and you see Jake Gyllenhaal just kind of walking around and trying to figure out, okay, he could be around here somewhere, is he not? But then you hear that subtle whistle blow, that whistle noise that we've heard throughout the entire movie, and you see Jake Gyllenhaal start to turn around because he faintly hears that whistle, and then the movie ends. I think it ended at the perfect spot. I did not want it to go any longer, and I did not want it to go any less than that. I think Prisoners is a great movie, but when we're talking about the ending, it's absolutely one of the best endings because it just ends at the perfect spot, and movies can rarely do that. Alright, I'm going to switch things up now and bring you guys a Denis Villeneuve movie. Okay, listen, I like the director and I like his endings. He's got another movie on this list, and that is Blade Runner 2049. I will never forget the way that I felt about this ending when I was first watching in theaters. You see Ryan Gosling's character lay down and basically die. You don't see the results, but you know that he's dead. And then Harrison Ford puts his hand on that glass, and so does his daughter, guys. The ending was emotional. I think the thing that made it really emotional is that score that just builds and swells and gets so loud, and it's my favorite part of the film. Every time that score hits that note, you guys know what that note is, it does it here at the end, and it just makes this ending magnificent. We move on to basically the end of my childhood. I grew up with the Toy Story movies and Toy Story 3 when Andy is giving away his toys. That entire sequence, which is the end of the movie, I thought it hit the nail on the head in every single possible way, guys. I love the way this movie ends. I love the entire film, but when you get to that part and you know he's about to give away some of his best friends and the little girl's running around, she's so happy. Number 4 is a recent film. It's one that could go up with time, but Avengers Infinity War, you knew it would be on the list, but that final scene when all of our heroes are disappearing, I've talked about it 100,000 times, but let's talk about it again. Guys, this ending is emotional, unexpected, you don't know what is going on. I thought it was a dream sequence or something when I was first watching the movie. I'm like, they couldn't possibly be killing old Black Panther and Spider-Man and Bucky, but you know what? It turns out that Thanos actually did that, and regardless what happens in the next movie, I don't think it personally takes away anything from the ending to this movie because of how emotionally well done it was, how well directed it was. The decision to not have a score playing in the background during all the deaths I thought was a great one, and it just added to the creepiness of the scene, guys. I love this movie, I love this ending, and it packs a big punch. Let's move from superheroes dying to superheroes dying, and that is the ending to Logan. The only reason I put this ahead of Avengers Infinity War is because instead of all of these characters, you're spending this whole movie with this one character. You're building to love him even more than you already loved him before you went to the film, and then he dies. As you expected him to die, just from the Old Man Logan storyline in the comics, and you know it's probably coming, but that relationship with his daughter that's built up really adds to this ending, and that final scene of her talking at the funeral and then moving the cross to an X, and that score swells up and it zooms into that graveyard, guys. I thought that was brilliantly well done. I think this movie packs an emotional gut punch, and the ending is one of the best endings to a superhero movie I've ever seen, maybe even the best. So this list has a lot of Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, so we move on to another director that has 2 movies on this list, and that is Damien Chazelle, who directed Whiplash. And Whiplash is one of the best endings to any movie in history, not just the 2010s, because you spend this entire movie with Miles Teller trying to get across to J.K. Simmons how he wants to be successful, and it just doesn't work, and you guys know that if you've seen the film, but that final scene, and yes, it's like 4 or 5 minutes long, but his drum solo, guys, it is, if you haven't seen this movie, first of all, check it out, but the entire film is worth it for this one final scene when he is just going ham on those drums, and you see that relationship with J.K. Simmons' character start to spark once again, even though they're on 2 completely different pages, and then he's bringing him up and he's playing the drums, guys. This is one of the best endings to any movie ever, and if you're a big music fan, I think you'll really love it as I did. We move on to my number 1 movie on this list. This is in my top 10 films of all time. I love everything about it. I think the directing's amazing, directed by Christopher Nolan, but the ending of Inception is something that really took a lot of people for a spin. think that he was in the real world, and I went with the whole, oh, he's in a dream thing for a while, but people started to bring up, oh, like he has his ring on and blah, blah, blah. So I started to get on board with that, but you know what? No one actually knows. The only two people that know is Christopher Nolan and Leonardo DiCaprio, and there are so many, even to this day, 8 years later, people are still talking to the ending of this movie, and that is something right there that tells you this ending made an impact, whether people walked out of the theater not liking it, which I'm sure they did, until they started to think about it and think, wow, that is the perfect place to leave off, or you walked out of the theater loving it, but you don't know how it actually ended. Christopher Nolan does this quite a bit. I mean, he did it with Interstellar and The Dark Knight Rises. It's not like, oh, you don't know how it ends, but it kind of leaves on a cliffhanger. But that's exactly what Inception did. It makes you think. It makes you go back for the movie and watch it over and over and over. Inception is a movie that makes you want to watch it again, and the more that I watch it, the more that I love it, and the more it slides up in my top 10 movies of all time, guys. I think Inception is brilliant, but the ending to the movie just capped it off on the perfect note, and that is why it's at #1 on most people's lists from the decade, but it's definitely #1 on my list. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Like I said, comment, what are your thoughts? Which endings do you like more than the other ones? Let me know in the comments down below. You guys are the absolute best. Stay tuned. I got some more reviews coming out this week. I don't think there's a brand new Netflix movie, but I will have one Thursday evening. You guys are the absolute best, and I'll catch you later.